Hi, my name is Susanna Hudson, and I'm going to be teaching you about server-side programming. So to begin with, first we must ask the question of what is server-side programming? What we first need to understand is that there are three different entities that are engaged in the use of programming and data exchange: the user, the client, and the server. We human beings are the users, the ones who are trying to get the data. A client is the entity that requests pages from the server and displays them to the user. In general, a client program is a web browser. The server is the entity that is serving the web page, the client, with its request. So I'm going to show you now what this looks like. I'm going to bring up Google Chrome, and I have opened up the Google web browser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the URL that I want to go to, bing.com. Nowadays, when we type in a URL, we no longer need to type in the entire URL, just a portion of it. The client, which is Google, will forward this request to the server so that I can access their web page. The client does this by using Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or as you may be more familiar with, it's the HTTP. The client uses the HTTP to communicate with the server, and normally we see that at the beginning of the URL. The HTTP is usually the main server that we use when browsing web pages. The server then acknowledges the request and replies back to the client with an access link to bing.com. The client, which is the web page, then receives the page source, the URL, and displays it so that I can now see and use bing.com. So when I hit enter, what it is doing is sending that request to the server saying I want to go to bing.com. The server reads that request and then it produces the entire URL. It returns it to the client, and then the user, me, can see the entire page of bing.com. And as you can see right here is the HTTPS, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So as you can see, this requires a lot of action from the user to the client to the server, and then going back from the server to the client to the user. This is why programming is known to be a means for data exchange, because there is so much taking place to send out and receive data. Server-side programming must deal with dynamic content. Dynamic means that there is a change and there is actions taking place. We can obviously see this as we go from one page to another, which deals with an entirely different set of data that can be used. However, web pages can be built to be static, where there is not a lot of change necessary. In essence, the websites that we are currently building right now in our class, they are static because we are displaying fixed content, hence why the class is called front-end development, because we are not creating a server to collect data from, which is back-end development. Many blogging websites tend to be more on the static side of front-end web pages. What we are doing in this class is client-side programming, which deals with the user interface, in which the user interacts in the web page. The languages that we use for client-side programming are the ones that we all have been learning, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Creating the code to support a dynamic website that must be run on a server is what server-side programming is. Server-side programming has an entirely different set of languages that must be learned to build servers that actually store data and create databases. So those of you who are studying computer science, computer programming, or computer information technology will more than likely have to take a class where you will learn about the back end of web development. For those of you who are more interested in how users interact with web pages and how to give users a great experience, then this front-end class of ours is a perfect start to a career as a front-end web developer. For those who are more interested in the creation of databases and creating software, then you should look into back-end web development. So recall back in week 8 how we were building the forms for the Storm page on our websites. These here were messages that were displayed in our assignment page. We can see here that it says our GitHub pages won't be able to support the HTTP post method. And it also said that the submission of all the information that we put in our forms will not process any of the input. This is because we do not have a server to send this data to or a server to collect this data from. We are only building the front end of the website. So listed here are some of the more common back-end languages used when creating server-side programs. Let's take a look at the first one. C++ was first created in 1983 and is a multi-paradigm programming language that supports object-oriented programming. Next, we have Python, which was created in 1991. Python is one of the more popular programming languages for server-side and is considered to be a high level. PHP, which was first created in 1994, stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. This is a general-purpose programming language, and PHP files can contain text, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP code. Next, we have C#, which is pronounced that way, not C# or C#. C#, created in 1999, is also a general-purpose programming language, but it is used for more object-oriented programming. So here we have an example of PHP code. Recall that I just said that the PHP files can contain text, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP code. As you can see, we can see some very familiar parts in the PHP code that we have seen in JavaScript. PHP is very simple and a common language to use for server-side programming because it can generate dynamic page content. It runs on the majority of platforms used today, such as Windows and Mac, and it supports a wide range of databases. And it is advised that before a person begins to learn back-end languages, that they first learn front-end languages. As you can see in this image, that we have some familiar languages. Here we have a function that has some similar requirements as that which we have learned in JavaScript. We can also see here that there is an if statement being used and a for each loop. Also notice how the end of each line of code has the same semicolon that is used in JavaScript. Even by having just a simple working knowledge of JavaScript, we can look at this code and be able to read it almost, and this will allow us to be able to learn some more programming languages. Now let's look at what we can do with server-side programming. Imagine websites that have unthinkable amounts of data and information, such as all the products available on Amazon or all of the tweets that are posted on Twitter. Imagine if those websites were static, where you would need to create a separate static page for each product or post. This is very impractical, and so this is where dynamic programming comes in. Server-side programming can store the information in a database and dynamically construct and return an HTML file and other types of files for every post made or every product added to the website. And because the information is in a database, it can more easily be shared and updated with other systems. And because server-side programming uses databases to store information and data, this allows clients or web pages to provide a convenient and tailored user experience, such as the Google search engine, which remembers everything that we have searched recently so that we have a quicker browsing experience. Also, because information is being stored, servers can use this information to anticipate our interests and further customize responses to searches. Server-side programming allows websites to give users options to restrict access for specified users and serve only the information that the user is permitted to see. An example of this would be on Facebook, where we can control who sees our profiles and who is allowed to comment on our posts. This next tool of server-side programming is new and everywhere. To store a session or state of information is a means of automatically saving for us. It basically is a mechanism that allows a server to store information on the current user of a site. We see this as websites remember that we have logged in recently, or when we are playing a game, the server will save the state of the game so that when we go back to the website, we can continue from where we left off. This next bullet point is something that we may all have found annoying at one point. Through the use of server-side programming, servers can send general or user-specific notifications through the website itself or via email, messages, notifications, and more. We see this when we get emails or notifications on our phones about someone commenting on our Facebook post. And then this last tool is something that has become very popular recently. It's known as cookies, and you've probably seen it anywhere as you visited every website that it will display a message warning you about how that website uses cookies. The website is warning you that it may collect a lot of data about what you are doing on their page. What you search for, what you buy, what you recommend, and how long you stay on each page. So the server-side programming can be used to refine the responses gathered based on analysis of the data. So as you can see, the world of web development is deep and complex, but it is almost universal. By studying the basic programming language, you can begin to learn many of the other programming languages out there. I hope that this presentation was insightful, and if you guys have any questions, please post them in the discussion board. Thanks for watching!